It's over. So anyway, so Chuck tells these guys, FBI dudes, double his guard and, don't project where he's going to be, how he's going to get there, and all that kind of stuff. Be really careful about what you guys are doing, and he'll be all right. And nobody's going to want to mess with, a well-armed, well-fortified protection crew, too much. So, so they listen, and even this fella Hinckley, tried to kill Reagan that day. But if you notice in the old pictures, okay, all those dudes were armed to the gills. I mean, they had automatic weapons on them, and they were sticking out their coats, and and they were using a back door, I believe, if I remember right. But he survived it. He got shot. He got hurt pretty bad, and he almost didn't make it, but he did make it. The Lord preserved him. So, because they got wind. That's what it was. They got wind of some group that was going to try to assassinate Reagan. And when Chuck's letter came in, it was like, whoa, what's this? This guy seems to know everything that's going to be that we know and more. So that's why they went to go interview him and find out what he was all about. And that's why they polygraphed him too. They wanted to, make double darn sure that he wasn't part of this whole plot or whatever. Because looking at it from their perspective, they don't necessarily know the Lord, and they don't believe a lot of this stuff about prophecy and prophets and whatnot. So they're looking at it from a worldview of, well, anybody that has knowledge of this kind of thing is a suspect. So that's how they're looking at it. So they were just doing their job, and anyhow, so Chuck, he earlier in his walk with the Lord, he used to walk with another fella, and they'd walk through the states. They walked to Washington D.C. and he was gonna, I forget what he was gonna tell the president, but something. And then so the Secret Service was watching him close. They were following him, actually, and the Lord sent a couple angels down to basically get the Secret Service dudes off his trail, because the Lord had something for Chuck to do. It was very important, and he didn't want these FBI dudes on Chuck's backside following him around. So he sent these angels that looked just like Chuck and this other fella, and they walked a certain direction, and Chuck and this other guy walked another direction. Well, the FBI dudes, they followed the decoy angels, and Chuck was able to go out and do his mission that he was supposed to do, and basically anoint a person that was later on going to be very integral in a leadership position in the country during its darkest times. So, the Lord was protecting the identity of this person, and also Chuck and this other fella, because the enemy was out to, not let this be so. So, but the Lord has His ways, and there's no stopping what the Lord wants to do. So, so Chuck went and he did his mission, and then he came back and he was on the route again. I mean, these guys had blue backpacks and red backpacks with a big cross on them, and they were walking down the highway, and so they had, they weren't hiding or anything, and they weren't hiding what they were doing, and they were putting, little notices in people's mailboxes. That's all, about this revival or whatever they were doing, and they weren't doing anything wrong. So they were just preaching the word, and also preaching warning about what was coming. So that's what the Lord had Chuck do, was be a watchman on the wall and just say, hey, this is what's coming. You need to prepare, much like he did with Dimitri Duduman and Henry Groover and others that are now doing it. That little gal, Celestial, on the Master's Voice. She's basically the Lord using her kind of as a final declaration of like the shaking of the feet. It's over. She's shaking her feet. She's laying out the charges, laying out the judgment that is going to be that it's already begun. I mean, it's already starting. So she shook her feet out of New York City just the other day, and so if I was in New York City, I would take heed, and I'd be seeking the Lord about leaving. She's leaving. He's taking her out of there. It's what she's accomplished, and what the Lord had her doing there. So things are just so when a nation or a city or like Sodom and Gomorrah get to a certain point, there's no return. So it's over, and that's basically where they're at right now. And this country as a whole is what she's proclaiming, this judgment. The Lord is proclaiming this judgment, and I don't believe she's exclusively the only one that's doing this either. There are others that are doing it, but so get yourself right. What's the date today? It's the 22nd of September. Okay, and a friend of mine texted me a little text message about a storm right now is brewing and heading up toward the Gulf, possibly, and it may hit the Louisiana area, and it may not, but its projected path is looking like it's going to come right straight for Louisiana again. And he texted and asked, you think this could be the one that Chuck was talking about? Because in this prophecy that he was shown, one of the events that happens, and I'll go over this too, because it was kind of, when I reread it again, I read it different this time, and it just hit me different because of the way that it's written here, the way that it was put out by Chuck at the Prophecy Club, little session they had there. He talks about, he says the first year, now. Okay, so this is the first year, right? Now he's talking about summer. He says, spring rain will be followed by summer heat and gas shortages. The dollar will begin to slide in July. For this reason, crude oil imported to the United States will increase sharply, and there will be gold value problems. Temperature will begin to rise in early June. Chuck asked the Lord when, June 9th. There will be no rain of any significance from mid-June and on. Devastating hurricane to hit New Orleans in September. The president will be in serious trouble by December. Japan and China will become friends through economic agreements this year and arrange certain defense agreements that will seem aimed at Russia, but secretly aimed initially at the United States. This will be a great deception. And then he says, in the next one, 10, that was 9. The angel of death awaits through this year. 13. I don't know where 11 and 12 are, but anyway. Continue in faith. The net of prayer will grow steadily and then unexpectedly be ready. 14. Do not fear. This year many will lose jobs and city and state governments will fail suddenly. There will be serious economic crumbling. Disease will start from California and move east. Many left incapacitated. Now that hasn't happened yet. From Georgia, a plague to kill thousands as it spreads. Panic and fear will grip the nation. Food riots will break out in August in many major cities. Now, he was talking about December, a little earlier than that, and September, right, and June. Now that, this is a year, right? He's talking, then he goes, the president will be in serious trouble by December. And then he starts talking about, he says, many will lose jobs, there'll be economic crumbling, disease will start in California, in Georgia, and then food riots will break out in August in many major cities. Okay, now is this August, the August of the next year after that, December? Okay, which would mean it would be next year, okay, where some of these events take place. Food costs soar, availability declines, government tries to, it fails to instill confidence. Now, things are pretty shaky right now as far as food production. There's food plants burning up and all this weird stuff, and crops problems, and the prices of food's going up, and the dollar's dropping, and they've been kind of puffing up the fuel to keep everybody going, but the price of gas is pretty high, and it went down for a little while, and then now it's starting to creep back up. So, we could limp along till next August, at least as far as keeping food available to some degree, to where people aren't actually provoked to go riot.